So in this video, we're going to talk about Moore's Law and how Moore's Law is related to social media. You might know what Moore's Law is, but if you don't, let's just go over that briefly first. So Moore's Law is essentially that overall computing processing power will double every 2 years. Now, if you want to get technical with this, we're talking about the processors that are put on, or the transistors that are put onto processors, essentially doubling the amount of transistors that can fit onto a processor. So the result of this is that technology gets faster and technology gets cheaper relative to where it was as time progresses. So every 2 years, your computers will get faster and cheaper in relation to where they were. Now, this also applies to things like hard drive space, memory, screen resolution, and things of that nature, in addition to processors. It's become a kind of catch-all thing for the progress of technology. So we're looking at technology doubling in power every 2 years. One good example of how that is if you look at cell phones. Take the iPhone, for example, and take the amount of storage that they have on it. You know, you can now get a 256 gigabyte iPhone just as part of the standard line, where, you know, several years ago 8 gigabytes was as most as you could get. So over time it's doubled in size and stayed the same price, but in essence became cheaper because you could do 16 gigabytes for the same price as you could do 8 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes for the same price that you do 16 gigabytes, etc. So let's talk about what that means for social media. So when we're looking at social media, how does technology play a part of social media? And in that sort of way, what we're talking about is we're talking about the bottleneck. Where is the point where innovation and new ideas, where's the point where that stuff starts to slow down? Well, since technology is advancing, getting faster and cheaper at a rapid pace, the bottleneck for new technology and applications isn't the infrastructure. This is something that's always progressing and getting better. And you can see all of the modern social media applications that are running on current infrastructure. You know, we have a wide array of things that are very possible. The bottleneck for new technology and applications really comes from creativity. What can your mind think up? How can it take what we have and apply it to things that are existing? Because the technology is there. We have the technology in it, or if we don't have the technology, we soon will have the technology. A good example of that is VR. While it exists currently, it's not in a state right now where it's cheap enough to be out into the masses. But, you know, Moore's Law, we're seeing that VR technology come down in price while still getting better in application. So a VR social media network might be coming down the pipeline very soon. So let's talk about an example of what this is all about, and we can look at it through the lens of YouTube. Traditional media for a long time has been very difficult to get into. You know, if you wanted to be an actor, if you wanted to be on television, if you wanted to be in the movies, if you just wanted to get ideas that you have out there, it's highly restrictive. But thanks to Moore's Law, thanks to technology getting better, then not only are they able to make better web applications so something like YouTube can exist, but they start to make better, cheaper cameras and better, cheaper microphones. Things that you need to be able to produce media content to put it out online. So what happens is the barriers to access get broken down. So nowadays you can go out, buy a decent camera from a store or order one from Amazon or any other online shopping site. You know, for $150 to $200 you can get a decent camera. For $500 you can get a really good camera. And you on your own could start producing content, putting it onto YouTube, and becoming a part of this media shift that we're seeing. You know, you could see Moore's Law in action in this sort of situation, because a lot of the traditional media giants, your big television channels, your big movie companies, they were initially not prepared to take on the digital shift. People moving to YouTube for content, both creating content and watching content. So in some sense, in that way, traditional media lost ground. You know, it's only in recent years that more traditional media companies have started to work harder on their online social media presence. They never had to before, but since technology became more accessible, the average person could get it and use it to create, then we're breaking down barriers to entry, and more people are having a seat at the table without the need for these traditional media companies. So in essence, when we're talking about Moore's Law, and we're talking about how it relates to social media, you can kind of think of Moore's Law as the operator of this wrecking ball here. The wrecking ball is breaking down this wall, breaking down this barrier to entry. So if Moore's Law is operating our wrecking ball itself, the thing that Moore's Law is using to break down this wall, is social media. Social media being low barrier to access, allowing you to get your voice out there, to communicate with and build your audience. And so that's going to be the focus of a lot of our work that we're going to be doing throughout the semester. You know, you're not a major production company. You might not have access to the biggest and fanciest cameras or biggest and fanciest recording equipment, but that doesn't really matter. Because technology is advanced in such a way where the only limit to what you're able to do and create and put out into the world is your own creativity. you have the tools and you have the access to material that makes things possible. So that's Moore's Law and how it relates to social media. Thank you for watching.